Hi everyone. Sorry if I didn't have another video or podcast up for you early enough. So I have been actually working for the last 10 days on those graphs for Italy and South Korea that I was covering in class. Um, I guess the right thing to do is kind of apologize. When I developed those, I didn't I don't want to say I didn't do a good job, but maybe I didn't think through how much I would actually need them. And there's actually a good lesson in spreadsheet use that I used to teach in Econ 6100 and Econ 2500. The most important downstream user of your spreadsheet is yourself in a couple days or a couple weeks, and you want to design it from the ground up to work properly. Well, so the last 10 days I've been redesigning that from the ground up to work properly. Um, Obviously, not every day because it's not that huge of a project, but here's the thing, I really have not gotten those dynamic forecast charts to work very much better. Um, the basic problem is it's still pretty cumbersome for me to update. It's supposed to be automated, but the automation just isn't working. And so, anyways, I'm kind of giving up for now on automating those and showing you what I've got with something that is less work than it was 2 weeks ago for me to maintain, but is more work than I would actually like. So, here is the what was the Italy and South Korea uh, spreadsheet, and I will save this to Canvas shortly. And you should feel free to download this and use this as you like. Now, first thing is, I've just dropped out South Korea here simply because South Korea appears to have gotten their epidemic under control. So they're really no longer interesting in here. This is a continuation of what we did with Italy with a lot more data shown. Same sort of story that we had before, that the triangles are the actual data points, the lines are 5 day ahead forecasts. There's a single green line up here, and I made that one green because if you recall, there was one day about 2 weeks ago when the Italians in Lombardy just didn't even report cases that day. And so that's the forecast you get from that one off day. The general pattern that you see here is that they are not ahead of the curve, so to speak, yet. Okay, they are flattening this, but the flattening is, kind of close to imperceptible here. And you shouldn't read too much into this gap out at the right hand side. Okay, part of the reason for this gap, and this again goes along with how I was automating this and trying to get it to update on its own. Um, Part of the reason for that gap is I didn't actually do, say, a forecast on this day going 5 days out into the future. Okay, and because I didn't do that, that might actually be a lower line that's tighter to these points. So pretty much all graphs that I do with this method have some divergence over here in the last couple observations. But continuing where we were in class 12 days ago now, um, this sort of behavior indicates kind of epidemic out of control. Okay, not necessarily getting rapidly worse, but the fact that it's different every day just means it's popping up everywhere, and they're just figuring out what to measure. Once it settles down in here, okay, it's still bad and it's still growing and getting worse, okay, but kind of like all the ducks are in a row here in the sense that all the testing is being done, all the tests are being reported, they're doing everything for everybody that they can. And what we see here is again some disturbing signs continuing on out to 3, 4, 5 days ago here, okay, of the tips of the triangles being above the lines. So that's actually getting worse. Um, Going back here to the spreadsheet with the raw data, okay, we do see something good in Italy in that in this column C here, we have the difference log in cases. You can view that as an approximate growth rate. And if you scroll down this column right here, you can see that it's getting lower and lower and lower and lower. And that's great, okay? But we're still at 7.3% growth per day. That's doubling in 10 days, and the Italian healthcare system is already, I don't want to say in a state of collapse, but in a state of just severe abuse and overuse right at this time. But this is a whole lot better than from where they were in a week ago, say right here with a 12.5% growth rate, where you're talking about a doubling every 6 days. Or even if we go back to like March 14th, which was the day after the last day we were in class. So this is actually the last day we were in class right here. Okay, am I looking at that right? I'm looking at my calendar here while I'm talking. Yep. That last day while we were here in class, it was doubling every 5 days. So they've gone from doubling every 5 days out to doubling every 12 days, and that's probably good. That means that the containment is working. Doesn't mean it's over. Okay, doesn't actually mean that they're going to be able to handle this. I mean, you don't know at what point that they get so many sick doctors and sick nurses that things just start to fall apart. We don't know if that's possible, if that could happen. Okay, I was watching a video from a hospital in Italy the other day done for British TV, and the journalist was in the full hazmat suit, where the doctors and nurses were mostly just walking around in scrubs with a simple mask on, and some media didn't have that. And what that indicates is they're all infected already. Okay, the reporter coming in from London is uninfected and they don't want him to carry it anywhere, so they put him in a hazmat suit. But the doctors and nurses, I don't want to say that they've given up, but they're resigned to the fact that they are living at the hospital and they're going to get sick, and some of them are going to die without leaving. Okay, which is not a really nice thing to say, but it's the truth. Okay, now I also did this for death rates. Now, the nice thing is, as I have cleaned this file up, you should be able to go in here, okay, and if you want to modify this, swap out the data in this column right here. So you could go to some different country that you're interested in, like say Spain or Japan. Swap out the data in this, and the entire thing ought to update. So once I had created that other file, I did this one in a matter of about 2 minutes. Okay, so this actually shows deaths in Italy. And you can see here that again, the rates on those are very high, but they're down to 9.5%, which again is doubling every 7 to 8 days. Okay, which again is not great, but it's coming down. Okay, now this chart is a lot weirder. Okay, the period where the deaths are much choppier is very long here. Okay, indicating good days, bad days, worst days, and whatnot. This green one here, that's that old one from cases that I wanted to mark special, but I don't know if there was any strange behavior in deaths that day, so I'll just stick it back in as a black one. And again, you can see some periods in here, in here, in here over the last 15 days or so where they are not beating their forecasts. But again, it is going out and getting flatter, and that's a good thing. Now, last up, I've also done this for the United States. And here we see what's going on in the US data, and it's extremely choppy here up until about 5 or 6 days ago. Okay, and that's indicating that the testing was kind of all over the board. And on some days we would run more tests, some days we'd run less tests, some days they would be in states where they were finding new cases, others in where the epidemic was more fully developed. But basically it's a mess, okay? And you can see that there were lots of periods in here where the number of cases was exceeding the forecasts, okay? Now we get up in here and we're still growing at a pretty nasty rate. Ignore that gap right there over the last couple days, okay? And it's not great, and there's not a lot of flattening here, okay? If we go over to the data page, again, this is your approximate growth rate, okay? And we see here that our approximate growth rate in the United States is still 22% in cases each day. That's doubling less than every 4 days, okay? Now, a lot of that reflects the fact that we weren't testing at all when we should have been, and we're still testing lots of people that actually have symptoms, and that number is going to come down a lot, but gosh, we are probably days or weeks from getting that number of cases under control. Okay, made a goof up here. I should change this to US data. Okay, so anyways, bottom line is the model that I am using here to do these forecasts is exactly case 4 from the book, using the model that we do for GDP applied to evolution of the epidemic. I don't think case 4 is a perfectly accurate model for an epidemic. I think an epidemic has to be hump shaped, whereas case 4 suggests a stochastic trend going on forever. But I think right now in the early stages where we're just on the going up side of the hump, I think it's a good simple approximation. Okay. All right, enough for this video. Let me save this and upload it for you. Bye. I hope you're all unsick and well.